Hey, welcome back to the War Journal podcast, episode 34. Today, I want to continue with the critical life lessons, and I want to talk about something that's important to everybody in their lives, and it impacts them in ways that they sometimes often don't know. And I want to talk about love and relationships and marriage. And I want to start by reading a passage from the book, and then I'm going to talk about my experiences. The times of greatest joy and sadness in my life are directly related to my relationships with women and spending time with my children. I received companionship, affection, and unconditional love from many women throughout my life, but squandered numerous opportunities for meaningful relationships with some amazing women, which I truly regret. My lust for beauty and desire for physical pleasure superseded any emotional connection, and I can only remember 2 or 3 times in my life when I truly felt love. However, I know that love is the most powerful, important quality in any relationship, and look forward to the day when I can be reunited with my children and give my heart to a woman. I'll start by saying that I'm not a relationship expert or dating coach, or I don't espouse to be someone who has more experience than others, but I can say that in my 56 years on this earth, I have some very unique experiences that allow me to provide insights that could be helpful to anyone, men, women. I'm not just taking this from a perspective of being a man, but my ideas on love and relationships have evolved from my own personal experiences, and it really starts with my family and my father. As many of you know, that my father was divorced 3 times, and my mother was married and divorced 4 times, and that really played a part in my development and my feelings and beliefs on marriage and relationships. So I had a very poor role model. My father was very jaded and bitter, by his 3rd divorce. And, after his divorce, he dated, and I looked at him almost as a role model in a way, because I was young and naive, and I saw him out and dating and having fun, and he was, I wouldn't say misogynistic, but he was just very chauvinistic in a way, due to his just bitterness and I would say anger towards women. He felt that he was jaded from his relationships in his marriage. And that kind of had an imprint on me. I thought it was cool or in vogue to go out and hook up, and I really didn't understand the value of relationships and understanding how women's emotions and feelings and were a part of that. It was very selfish and naive of me. So I'll give you a quick story, funny story, kind of tells about my experience. So I was engaged and I was on a trip to Australia, and my ex-wife, at the time, she had access to my computer, and I had a list. It was called the list, and I hid the list in my baseball card folder of all of the baseball cards that I was trying to collect to complete the list for each year. And when I came back from my trip, I was really excited to see my fiance, and I came home and she was really giving me the cold shoulder, and I couldn't understand why, and I kept asking her what was the matter. And she finally broke down and she said, "You're disgusting." What happened is she found the list on the computer because she was going through and she was going to be nice and get me some baseball cards. And she read through the list and didn't go well. So I had to explain that. And the point behind this is that I had written a list of almost every woman that I could remember being with in my life. And I'm not proud of the list, but it kind of reflects about who I was and how I behaved and how I interacted with women. And what I would say, the lesson that I've learned from that and I wish that my son could learn from me, is that over 100 women, being with them, I would replace that any day with having one or two or three relationships that I can look back on and say that I was in love and I felt in my heart love for another woman. And I have. And there were women in my life that I can remember. You know, I dated Stephanie Tempest in college, and I squandered that and made mistakes, but I was young, but it's not an excuse. And then Pam Woods was a wonderful woman who I regret to this day, ending that relationship, but that was timing. And then there was a couple others. And if you ask, was I in love with my wife, my ex-wife? I can honestly say, looking back, that I didn't have that love, for her that I had with other women. And I think, and I know in my heart, looking back, that definitely impacted our relationship. I didn't get married until I was 40, and I got married for the wrong reasons. I had seen my friends get married, have children, get divorced, get married again, and I felt the pressure. I always wanted to be a dad. I wanted to raise children. I wanted to have a son. And when I met my my ex-wife, she was the perfect picture of what I believed in my heart a wife should be. And I was kind of enamored by her family, and I thought, wow, if I could have that for myself. And I overlooked a lot of the things that I've overlooked and made mistakes in the past in relationships, because I was so captured by the idea of getting married and having a family and raising children. And this is part of what I want to talk about. When you enter into a relationship, I believe now, looking back, you will fight or argue or disagree with the person you're with about some fundamental things. Number one, and sex. Frequency, how much, how often, what type. And I really believe that you need to be connected with the person you're with to have a successful relationship physically. And part of that is the emotional ties and bonds, but also the physical ties. And sex is a huge part of that. And if you're not compatible sexually, your relationship is doomed. I hear about, and I talk to friends who are in marriages and relationships, and they don't have the intimacy. They don't have the connection. They have sex once a month, or in some cases, every couple months. And how can you maintain a relationship and your feelings for a person when you're not connected with them? And this is one of the biggest issues that I find in our society today and with relationships is agreeing upon sex and having it a healthy part of your relationship. The other thing that I've found in a relationship when you're married, you'll argue or fight about is finances. How you manage your finances, how you manage your finances together. It creates stress and anxiety. And I recommend that, you sit down when you're in a relationship or you're getting into a relationship with somebody, and you talk about finances and expectations and savings and plans, and because you really need to be on the same sheet of music. Same with sex. And the other thing is, the important factor that I believe is children and raising children, and your expectations for how you will raise your children together. And if you're on the same sheet of music. My marriage, it was a clear example of two different parenting styles that conflicted. My ex-wife was given everything in her life, and she really never had to work for anything. So her parenting style was a direct reflection of her childhood, where love was giving things and presence and receiving things, where I grew up with a humble, uh, in humble environment, and I was really deprived of love in a way because my mother and father divorced, and I was always seeking affection, especially in my adolescence and my teenage years, and in my time in the Marine Corps, and that's what resulted in me being kind of promiscuous. I was looking for that affection. It made me feel good. It made me feel loved, which I had missed in my childhood. And for me, understanding these things is very important. And also understanding and looking back at my father and our relationship and being a poor role model in a way. But I can say that later on in life, when I was married, and my dad warned me not to get married to my ex-wife, and he said, the Holtzmans are not what they appear to be. And he was a very smart, intuitive, intelligent man, even behind like this crude, misogynistic, chauvinistic person, construction worker, union guy, used to tell me, things like, women, they're not good for anything, turn them upside down and they all look the same. And I can understand why he had that feeling and those perceptions from being hurt and jaded. But for me, I never wanted to take that on, and I never wanted to embrace that. But he was very smart, and he knew, and he had insights that I should have listened to. And one of the things that I've learned through my life is your good friends can see things that you can't, and you should ask them. And if they truly are good friends, they will tell you, their opinions and beliefs for your best interest. I have a real dear friend, Tony Zend, and I remember that he was dating Kathy, and Kathy was from Tennessee, where he was at, and she really, in my opinion, wasn't a good fit for him. And I helped him move his things into her condo, and I can remember carrying a drafting table up to the third floor, and he would confide in me and talk to me about his relationship with Kathy. And it was at dinner one night, and I was sitting down with JT and Kathy and JT's wife, and at the time I wasn't dating anybody, and Kathy said, what do you think about us getting engaged? And I said, much to the chagrin of Tony and Kathy, and even JT was a little surprised, I said, I have a great idea for you. Here's what you guys do. After dinner, you both go upstairs, grab a suitcase. You guys just pack some clothes. Don't know where you're going, don't know what your destination is, but when you get done packing, you guys just drive to the airport. And they were all excited. Like, I had some really cool plan for them, And I said, when you get to the airport, you go to one airline and you go to the other, and get on planes and go in separate directions. And there was like a silence, and they weren't sure if I was serious or if I was joking around. And I was serious, because I knew that that relationship was not a healthy relationship. And it's funny because sometimes you can see what's happening with other people and other relationships, and you can't see what's happening within your own relationship. And I've failed in many times where I've gotten into a relationship and you feel excited and you have all these feelings and emotions, and you don't see clearly. You lose sight of, as they say, red flags. And because you want to make the relationship work, especially with men. For me, I know that I want to please a woman. I want to protect a woman. I want to do everything I can in my power to make them happy, to make them feel safe, to make them feel good. And sometimes I put their needs and wants and desires ahead of my own. And oftentimes I lose my identity. And I can talk about the relationship that, I was in currently, where I would do everything that I could to make this person happy. And sometimes I would do things that I didn't want to do or wasn't comfortable doing. And I was always seeking approval or seeking validation. And For me, I don't need to have validation with anyone. I know who I am. I am comfortable with who I am. And that was a source of consternation because I don't believe that I need to change. I believe that if a woman loves me, she should love me for who I am and not try to change me, tell me to do the work. And I look at that relationship with some, there were wonderful times. And I look back at the relationships I had with women and believe that I had made mistakes in my life. And I ask people, and I tell you, try not to make those mistakes. Try to see things through an objective lens. Be critical of your actions and behavior, and be critical of the other person's actions and behavior. And don't lose your identity. Don't become somebody you're not to please another person. Stay true to who you are and be happy with who you are. I know in my heart I'm not going to be like my father. In a way, he was a Renaissance man. And I say this because how he managed relationships towards the end of his life is what I see happening in our society today. He didn't want to be involved with a woman. He didn't want to get married. He dated one or two women. They would come over to his house once or twice a week. They'd go out and have dinner. They'd have sex, and then they would leave. And that was a perfect arrangement for him. He was able to have his time with a woman or another woman, and then he still had his peace. He had his life. Was it empty? Was there solitude? I don't know, but for him, that worked. And I see that happening so much in our society today. And do I think it's a mistake? I don't know. But what I can say is there's nothing more powerful than being in a relationship and being in love and having somebody there to support you, to have affection, to have intimacy, to give you a hug, to that in your heart that they will love you and you love them. And that's one of the most powerful things on this earth. And if we look at it from a biblical sense, God created Adam and he created Eve to be his companion. And I think at a fundamental level, there's a basic desire and need for everyone to be with a partner. Be with, for a man to be with a woman they love, or for a woman to be with a man that they love. And that is something that I can't really put words to or explain, but I understand from a very primitive level. And I have always sought that in my life. And what happens going forward, I don't know. Will I find that woman and be madly in love and share my life with her? Or am I destined to be like my father and be alone and go back to my ways of hooking up and just being, satisfy my needs and desires? I truly hope in my heart that I find that woman that can fulfill me and that I can give her my heart and share a lifetime of happiness together. And I hope that everyone out there can do that. Find that woman that inspires you, or find that man that protects you. Be in a relationship and give yourself to them, give your heart to them. I know that it's hard, especially within our society today, where everybody's focused on themselves and they lose sight of the other person. And they lose sight of what's really important. Establishing goals together, your dreams together. And like I said, I don't have all of the answers or all of the solutions. All I can do is pray that a woman comes into my life and brings me joy and happiness and peace, and is a constant source of encouragement. And I've had that in my life, and I've had that in previous relationships. And I just hope that I can find it again. I hope this helps everyone. I wish that everyone could find that person in their life. I wish that they could just be with somebody. And the other part is, I wish that I can be with my children, because the love that I have for my children went beyond, or goes beyond, any love that I felt for another woman. And it's hard to understand that if you're not a parent. But being a parent and seeing your children and raising your children and knowing that you have so much influence on them, and that's why this separation that I have with my children right now hurts me so much, because I can see how they are going to be impacted by what's happening to them. I can see it because I experienced it myself. I had never wanted my son to be like me. I never wanted my daughters to turn out like my sister. I had always hoped that they would have a stable family environment and see what a healthy relationship is, so they can have healthy relationships in their own lives. And I fear that this separation and my inability to show them and guide them and teach them is going to impact them for the rest of their lives in their relationships. Once again, I pray that I'm reunited with them and that I'm able to show them what a healthy relationship, a loving relationship is, so they can see those things through me, and that they can have wonderful lives and find love in their lives. Anyway, I know this was kind of divergent from previous podcasts, and I don't have a funny story to tell or an anecdote, but I can say that when you choose the person that you are going to spend your life with, make sure that you align not only physically, but emotionally and intellectually. Find common goals. Find agreement on critical issues like intimacy, finance, child rearing. Find faith together. Some of the most healthy relationships that I've seen are where they both have a strong belief in God. And don't get caught up in your own emotions more than the other person's. Be selfless. If you're selfless in a relationship, it'll be something that keeps the relationship going. Anyway, please do me a favor and share this. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I believe that my insights can help anyone in a relationship and prevent them from making mistakes, the same mistakes that I made. Share it with your friends and family. Hopefully my words can rekindle a lost love, or, ignite the embers in a relationship that is, dying. Or maybe it can give somebody the motivation to go seek a healthy relationship if they're not dating. Anyway, next Word Journal podcast, I'm going to talk about education, which I truly believe is such an important thing in everyone's lives and is oftentimes overlooked. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I can't wait to talk about the next episode, and can't wait to start talking about the manuscript. You're going to love it.